Okay, back in January, I met someone who told me they were starting their path as a mixing engineer. And now, almost a year later, she's mixing records and have releases under her belt with the likes of Lupe Fiasco, Jason Derulo, and Ghostkid the producer. That kind of career acceleration is incredible to see, and it's something I want to unpack. I'm Nicholas De Lorenzo, a mastering engineer, and when I first crossed paths with Jade Alysse-Berry back in January, she was stepping into the world of professional mixing. And I want to welcome to the chat Jade Alysse. Thank you kindly for joining me on the Loud AF Club.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's awesome. Okay, you have to tell me, what was the first step out the door all the way back at the start of the year?
Well, I think in January when I met you at NAMM, um, I was just deciding to kind of say, okay, this whole kind of traditional path of the top-down style of the industry and like working as an assistant or working within a studio or any of those traditional things that you might do after finishing school to become a mixer was not panning out for me. So I had like spent the better part of the previous year, so 2024, kind of looking for positions and kind of going to studios and like meeting with engineers and, you know, facing all the different politics and different elements of the problems that we face in this industry. It just wasn't panning out. So I decided in January, hey, I'm just gonna do it on my own. I've already kind of had a career in music, so I'm gonna use those relationships and leverage that experience and just sort of like dive headfirst. And here we are today.
That's amazing. And so I want to find out a little bit of your background before mixing, and then I want to talk about relationships in the industry. So leading into this year, what were you doing in the music industry before you were diving into mixing headfirst?
I was producing a lot of vocal production and just kind of production under bigger names. Under producers who like establish themselves as like the name producers. When you listen to a record and you go, "Hey, this was produced by such and such." And then sometimes you'll see like several other producers like listed underneath. And sometimes some of them will be listed, some of them won't. Ghost production's very much a thing. It's genre specific, but I was kind of like in those two categories, and I kind of specialized in like some of the more complicated stuff. So I was the person that you would call when you needed like a 36-piece string arrangement. Um, on like an R&B record or something like that. So I kind of started off there and kind of carved out a reputation for myself and doing that. And I decided a couple years prior that I kind of was tired of being in the room and being in studios and like those kinds of hours. And so I decided to go back to school um and learn engineering and uh sort of wrapped up what I was doing early 2024 at Berkeley School of Music. And uh that's where I kind of launched into like my journey of pursuing my mixing career and that whole pathway.
Okay, interesting. So I'm curious, like when you're working as a co-producer or producer on projects, and then you're making this transition into mixing. Um, One part of reputation is competency with your skills. So obviously you're
Mhm.
very competent as a string arranger, as delivering in the room. What aspects of your reputation from your previous stint as a producer, uh, what reputable qualities translate also into mixing?
Um, well, I think that as an engineer, the typical engineer path is is like I think traditionally like more of a top-down style, and I think it can be kind of separate
Okay.
from the creative side of music making. So I think that sometimes there can be like a little bit of a divisiveness between like the two sides. And coming from the creative side and having years of those relationships, years of time spent within the studio and forming those friendships, and you're gonna form a relationship for better or for worse when you're in a studio for 3 months, day in and day night together, creating together as a team. And you will come out on the other side of a project like that, either closer or, like, I'm never gonna work with this person again, right? And luckily
Okay.
for me, I have formed some really amazing friendships and, some, earned like s a spot that was pretty dependable on some, like, pretty successful teams. So they trusted me with
Okay.
understanding that process. They didn't feel like I was gonna come in and fight with them as the engineer or like a mixer on the record or make it about me. They understood my perspective and the way that I approached the record, the way I approached music. And, uh a big part of how I obtained the opportunity to even mix some records that I did was by offering to continue to do the production part that I played before,
Mm.
and then saying, "But give me a shot to mix the record." Like, if I do that
Okay.
part and, like, maybe I do it for free, you know what I mean? Maybe I do the part
Yep.
that you usually pay me for free. Just give me a shot at mixing the record. You don't have to hire me if you don't like it, but give me a shot. And if you don't like it, okay, bet. Just give me a shot. And they liked it. And so, kept me as a mixer. And then,
Nice.
yeah, and then ultimately, like with Ghostkid or several other producers, I earned like a spot as like their like exclusive mixer. And that was kind of what set me up.
Okay, lovely, lovely. I'm like sort of extrapolating things out here that people can learn from it a little bit. So the one thing that sort of seems to like translate in those relationships from back then is that uh, they trust you know the process and you've got the experience in that process. So it's like she's across it, she knows the game, she understands how to dive into a project with us. And then the other thing, which I don't think is unique to you, and I'm seeing across a lot of mixing engineers get into the game, is having good production chops. Like when
Mhm.
people come in a project for a mix, um, and there's a gap to fill, sometimes you need to have the production chops to fill in those details that otherwise wouldn't be traditional mixing. So having those skill sets is a real like power move. Like, hey, I'm doing additional production on this, and guess what? Like, let me spec mix it out as well. So those are two things, like knowing the process and having experience in the process, as well as having really good production chops, have led into that. So that's awesome. Um, in terms of like, I'm really curious about the Ghostkid one, like becoming his trusted mixer. For two reasons. Ghost is like a really unique character whom I don't know, and that's not for me to dive into. But also, he's exceptionally reputable with the records he's done.
Mhm.
Um, what qualities as a mixing engineer do you believe you showcased for him to establish that sort of relationship where it's like if he's producing on a record, you've got that mix in the bag?
Um, I think that well, okay, so just to backtrack a little bit,
Yep.
because I do wanna put, like a almost like a cautionary note on, like, the idea of a mixer coming in with production chops. Um, my friend Jason Joshua, he always says, to me that the engineers are, like, all failed producers. Right, and so we always, like, laugh at that, and he laughs at it because I came from a successful production career into mixing. Actually, the first time I got together with him was because we were co-mixing a record that I had helped co-produce. Um, so, and he had mixed records I produced on before I was ever an engineer. And the idea is that you have, like, a production capability or you believe that you can bring your production into the record. I wanna caution, like, the engineer to come in, uh, thinking that that's okay uninvited, um,
Oh yeah.
because because I
Yeah.
think one of the things that does like I said, I think there's a divisiveness amongst the engineer versus, like, the creative side because they miss out on the decisions and the conversations and the thought process that goes behind, and they come in and oftentimes completely valid with a question about some sort of sonic characteristic or technical characteristic about what's going on in the record, but they don't understand that sometimes those things are intentional, or that sometimes that's been a process that has been had like angst over and debated over and been something that has taken months to work up towards and kind of land on. And I think that respecting that they are not there for that process and that they might not understand that journey of the creative side of the team, and respecting that they're there to, be a part of the team, not make it about them is important. So I want to give like that cautionary, because there's a lot of engineers that come in and
Yeah.
say, oh, I can add this, or I can change this, or I can produce this, and it's like, you're gonna get fired if you
Yeah.
do that, if you're not invited."
I will expand on what you just said there, because I think there's context to every project. People have to have some professional discretion to understand. So when a mix comes in, you don't want to step on people's feet. Like, what's happened in the room in production is really important. If somebody signed off on it, they signed off on it for a reason. That's how I always frame it. With that discretion, I think having the skill set there is better than not, because if
Totally.
you are requested of something and you don't know how to do it, then your hands are tied, and it's like, well, I don't know how to produce a vocal stack, or resample this, or you know what I mean. Like, you want to have that there as like that safety net, so when you are called on it or it needs that to push in, like, you've got that skill set available. Um, the
Oh,
main
totally.
question, the main question was, what qualities did you have, or do you believe you possessed as a mixing engineer in order to get as a mainstay on Ghostkid's productions as a mixing engineer?
Oh, I know what I was like saying. I think with like those things in mind that I just addressed, I think that I came in with that perspective and like without my ego at the front of the process, and
Okay.
just kind of wanting to contribute to the record reaching its full potential. And um I've learned, and one of the things that I think really prepared me for, like, the different personalities and the different things that you deal with as a mixing engineers was spending the years and the days and nights within the rooms with all the different personalities, right? Um, and so I'm pretty flexible, and I think that, and I'm pretty patient, um when I need to be, and then I have moments where I'm not. But I think especially when it comes to creatives, and me really respecting and understanding and having like a lot of compassion for like the thought process and the physical toll and the mental toll and emotional toll and just the different things that I've seen people go through to get where they ultimately are when they are on top, and the ups and downs. I think coming in to the relationship with him already knowing that I had that, and knowing that I really understood that element of things, and also just really wanted to be a part of making it better, and uh was willing to like listen first and foremost to not just the record but also the direction and the goal of the person that was leading the creative um direction of the song, is I think what sold him on me, because to him, our priorities aligned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Interesting. Then that's really cool, because that's something that through experience he's obviously known you for, and people that you've got relationships with have known you for: competency, good listening skills, no ego. You're on task, basically. You're not going to fluff around and try experiment, or push yourself into a project to be like, this is the way it should be done. It's not that. It's about respecting that creative directive, which is easy to do if you've got relationships with people and they know you and they're direct with you. How has this year been for you, bringing in new relationships as a mixing engineer that you otherwise haven't had access to in the past? Like, new people, new personalities, new like new opportunities to work with people that you otherwise haven't as a mixing engineer. How have you positioned yourself in that sense in order to get those jobs and start working on those projects?
Um, I mean, it's so small, like, once you get to a certain level.
Yep.
So, I don't think, at least on the creative side, I'm going in with no relation I don't there's a very rare person where I would be going in and that I don't either know you directly or know you come to you with a recommendation and referral from somebody that you know directly. Um,
Okay.
at least here, like, I'm just referring to specifically, like, the United States market, because I think it can get, like, more segregated. I think the UK market's different, the Australian market's different, but in terms of, like, the labels and the people that are, like, sort of the way it's structured here, um, so that has actually I think it's not so much a matter of, like, the new relationships. I think it's a matter of changing what the relationship is, because I
Okay.
think a lot of people, especially at the beginning, but still, I still face it, at least on the creative side, struggle to understand why I would want to make the change. Um, I think there's engineers that struggle to want to understand, like, or to understand, like, oh, well, if you're already doing this stuff, and that's something that their goal is to be on the creative side of things, and engineering was sort of like a job that they took in order to earn an income while pursuing their dreams of creative direction.
Hmm.
For me to go the other way around, I think that gets confusing for people or people who are like their whole dream and their whole like life and their whole soul and everything is to be on the creative side of things. Why would you turn around and be a professional nerd, so to speak, in the way that they look at it. And I think trying to help them understand that and understand that how passionate I am about mixing and that it is my favorite thing that I've done and my true passion and I found like my place and the thing that I really, really, really love that I really just want to dive into and spend every second of my time doing. I think it's trying to communicate that in a relatable way to people
Okay.
who already have known me for so long doing this other thing. I think that's more been the struggle as opposed to, like, the new relationships, the relationships that already existed, and
Okay.
how they understood me to be, yeah.
That's actually very reasonable. Because yeah, even okay. So a lot of your projects, a lot of what you're working on, you're somehow linked in, you're somehow referred. There's some pre-existing, even if it's ancillary or third party. You've got some sort of relationship there established, but um the real the real sort of turn on this is just sort of like, hey, I want to do mixing. So how do you like? That's my value proposition, which I get
For
because I
sure.
absolutely love engineering and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Has it met your expectation as a lifestyle? I'm really curious about that in terms of you wanted to leave the room because you didn't want the late nights, you didn't want to like be stuck in a room for 3 months with a bunch of other people just slaving it out. Has it met your expectation this year on the lifestyle side of things when it comes to just mixing records?
Yes and no.
Okay,
Yeah.
explain.
Yes
Yeah.
and no. Yes, in that I get to, um sit in my like, studio, my mix room at home, and I get to like make my own hours and I get to, be chill and be in pajamas and hang out with my dog while I'm working and, you know, um, I get to like, hang out and like work with like some of my best friends who are like just as nerdy as me. And those were things that I really looked forward to and have really like loved about switching positions. I think I really, really idealized the idea of like the engineer lifestyle and the engineering community. I think, and that was part of the reason why when I met you in January, I was like, hey, I'm gonna make, a switch into mixing. I'm gonna switch into mixing and I'm just gonna do it on my own. the previous year, like I said, I had spent a year kind of like looking for positions. I really greatly underestimated the politics that are present in the engineering community. And I think I idealized it and thought, I'm going to leave production and I won't be in trapped out studios or in these crazy nights and blah, blah, blah. I get to hang out at home and I get to just chop it up with my fellow nerds. It's going to be freaking awesome. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and that is true sometimes. Um, but I will say that the engineering community is very political. It's very stressful. Uh, and um, I'm sure like you're familiar. And I think we even had a conversation about when we first met. There's like no females at all, and hardly any female mixers. I can think of like two that are
Yeah.
really really doing it. And they're of a completely different generation than I am. A couple of recording female engineers, and they, deal with their own bag of stuff because I'm friends with them. Um, so dealing with like the sexism, and dealing with just the different sort of attitudes and personalities of the male, it was not as friendly and as carefree and as like communal as I thought it was gonna be.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so I think in getting away from elements of stress, I gained a lot more stress in other ways. And it's been a journey, like learning how to deal with it and not take it personally and sort of try to take it in the chest and like move on and stuff. Uh and I think I've just had like the luck and the misfortune to kind of be maybe one of the uh I don't wanna say like the pioneers because there's been other women before me, but I mean, there hasn't been many. So, I guess until there is more it's more of a norm, you're kind of a pioneer. So you kind of become, like, thrust into that role as a female until there's enough women where it starts changing. Um, and that was not a role that I anticipated playing,
Yeah.
maybe
It's
kinda
almost like a sense of
naively.
leadership. Like it's like you take responsibility of your situation, and you have to lead by example, so that way you can show others what is possible through your actions. Like, just sitting on your bum and then being like, oh, I'm gonna quit or give up doesn't do anything for others. But actually showing up is really important because it's a great example to set.
Mhm.
And in parallel to that, you're not just showing up, you're setting the example. And I think what people have to understand is that, and baffles me, and I think is going to baffle everybody, is the fact that you're taking off in an 11-month time frame, which is crazy. Like, and I just, my head doesn't quite wrap around that. That's really good. It's really exceptional. It's a great example to lead like that. If you're in LA, I don't know if you're connected or you're hooked up with yet, but Jada Love, you should hit up if you haven't already. She's an awesome mixing
Oh, I
engineer.
know who Jade Love is. Yeah,
You
she's,
know?
Doechie's. I don't know her
Yeah.
personally. I've know of her because actually Celine Dion's lawyer thought I was her because of our
Oh,
names.
okay.
So
Yep.
he calls me after I think it was the Grammys. I think it was the Grammys. It might have been a different
Yeah.
award ceremony last year. And he goes, "Did I just hear Doechii say your name?" And I'm like, "Nope, different Jade." And he goes, "Yeah, Jada." I was like, "Well, my name's Jade, so it wasn't me."
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, so I
No.
do know who she is, but I don't know her
Yeah.
personally.
All right.
Great
No,
work though,
she's
great engineer.
great work, great engineer. She's been on the pod, and look, if you're about connecting with people who are absolutely kicking it, she's
100%.
she's
Yeah,
worth
I'd love
she's
to
worth
connect with her.
sliding into her DMs or linking up with her. Um, in addition to that, I sort of want to set a framework for people watching this. Um, when you're faced with, let's say, the opportunity to work on a project, so you haven't landed it yet, or you're about to start a project, and there's different people who are feeding into the conversation, or you're going to send mixed revisions out to, you're going to get feedback from. What do you do for yourself to show up so that way you, number one, deliver on the mix so you get the best mix possible, but also um, deliver for yourself so you controlling your environment, you're taking care of like managing revision notes or feedback, and not like beating yourself up over it, and like controlling the frame so that way things go as smoothly as possible, so everybody stays focused on the project and there's no other quote unquote political bullshit that sort of pushes through and cuts through the noise.
I don't often deal with political stuff from the creative side, fortunately
Okay,
for me.
that's good.
Um, I think that's more of a unique experience for me, but again, I think that comes from the relationships that I have and like
Okay.
um I I skip a lot of the bullshit because, like, I'm not like, again, it's I'm coming in and they know they don't have to worry about, "Here comes the engineer. Are we gonna have to deal with he or she, you know,
Yep.
telling us what we did wrong," or whatever it is, so we skip that part, and what they know that when I sort of stand up for something or sort of push against them in a way, it's for a reason, and I always explain myself.
Yep.
And then, ultimately, like, listen to their feedback and their thoughts on, like, whatever it is that I said, and it becomes like a conversation. I think it's just about communication and, like, mutual respect and
Yeah.
listening, and as long as you're a part of the team, as, like, idealistic and, like, kinda hippie and hunky dory as it sounds, if you come in with, like, that authenticity of really being like, and again, it could be a team that I've never worked with, and ultimately, before this year, none of these people I've ever worked with as an engineer, ever, because I
As an
was never a
engineer. Yep.
recording engineer. I was never a
Yep.
recording engineer. So
Yep.
it's a new role, a new relationship, new conversation across the board, whether I knew them before or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you come in with like that authentic like perspective, I think that they can sense it, that they can feel it, and there's like a trust there or not. I mean, if you understand what they're trying to achieve, and they feel like you understand what they're trying to achieve, well, they're why wouldn't they not want to hear what you have to see or like say if what you are saying or what you're pushing for or what you are trying to advocate for is in pursuit of that same goal.
Yeah, and that's the message of the communication in terms of being authentic. Explaining your ideas is really important. Like, it's one thing to say something, but also to back it up with why is important,
Yeah.
because either people will agree with the why or disagree with the why. But if you don't give a why out, you can't motivate people towards an idea in the first place.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Well, and
something
sometimes you don't agree.
yeah,
Like, sometimes
and
you
that's
won't
okay.
agree. Yeah, and, like, I had a record recently, this is a good example, where I did not, like, "win," quote, unquote, the thing that I was advocating for. It was a Timberland record, and it was on the Demiza and Day One album, their collaboration album. It's just an album full of features, and this record came in, and, I mean, that 808 was just, like, hitting, like, wild, like, over the head. It was all 808 and above 10K on the rough, right? And when I gave my first version of the mix, the producer calls me and he goes, "Yeah, what happened to that 808?" And I go, "Well, now it sounds like a balanced mix, for the radio," right? And that's my concern is like, I'm thinking Demiza, I'm thinking Power 106, right? And
Okay.
he was like, "Yeah, but this is Timberland's art." We really want like that 808 hitting in the same way. So I worked through about 9 revisions with him to make sure that I was hitting it in exactly the same way. Even when and as far as like partnering with Better Maker to go get like a hardware limiter so I could get like an exact sound while not making it sound like overcompressed or too clipped and still bring in the other elements without like distorting. And and was it like my taste or my preference or what I thought was balanced? Maybe not initially, but at the end of the day, I'm not Timbaland. I didn't. This isn't my beat. This isn't my song. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it justice. So that's an example of like meeting an expectation, and also kind of just being willing to like listen and understand why.
Yeah, and also it goes to the length of how you show up, because that feedback you could have like really gotten hard head on and pressed against and lost the job. But the fact you're telling me that in the process, number one, you've kept them engaged and valued across 9 revisions. That's a real slog of revisions. It's not a huge amount, but it's enough that to maintain a relationship, you have to have a respectful line of communication so everybody feels valued, because it's easy for people to just bow out and be like, yeah, nah, we're going to move on. The other thing which was really impressive is that you got the better maker specifically for this purpose. Like, hey, I need to get this bit of kit just to make this work so we can get this over the line and satisfy this project and this project's need. That's exceptional. What I'm curious with along this, like, even if we use this as an example, what do you feel is the best medium of communication? Because we've got the message and the why and our motivation for doing something, but it can come across in so many ways, from an Instagram DM to a WhatsApp message to an email to a phone call to a group chat. What do you find is the most effective way for communicating ideas, with the exception of being in the room? Because being in the room is like a cheat code.
I think it depends on who you're dealing with. Um,
Okay.
I would say usually just as a general rule, like the phone, just because it's like pick it up, get an answer, get it addressed. There are some people where, um, sometimes it is better to have it in writing. It's better to have it in text so that like things aren't missed, details aren't missed, things confirmed or like adjustments or whatever. It's like there and it's written down, and that way if they're in motion or you yourself are in motion, you have like the receipt so that way you can go back, either of you can go back later and like make sure that you're on the same page. But I do think that there is like, especially if you're like talking about or trying to work through something or work something out, the phone is the best way, whether it's FaceTime or like a regular phone call, just because you have the rapport and the conversation. So for me, my first instinct is always to just get on the phone.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Agree double on that. So phone is for timeliness, writing is for receipts. That's what I've written down for myself there. Um, do you ever phone and write at the same time? Like, give a summary. Like, you get off the phone and, like, let's say you're on the road, or you're out, or it's not something that's in front of your session right there and then. You get on the phone,
Mhm.
somebody goes, oh, we need the kick down XYZ and the bass, this 808 above 10K. What did you do? Do you ever confirm, like, take a phone and then just confirm it via email, or is that?
Only if there is multiple people on the project that need to be apprised at the same
Yeah.
time. Yeah, but I've been just like lucky. So it has obviously like been a short tenure compared to like, for example, somebody like you who's had like, I don't know how many years specifically you've been doing this, but I think it's well over a decade, right?
A little bit
So
over a decade, yeah.
yeah, and my peers, the same thing. All of my peers are like well into their like second decade, if not more. Um, to me, I don't actually, I haven't had to deal, 9 revisions is the most that I've ever had to do on any record.
Okay. Yep.
I don't usually have many revisions, and I don't usually have many um specific and extensive notes like those ones that we kind of joke about as engineers. That I haven't personally had to experience that really yet. A lot of the time I'm coming in like it's a trust that's formed, and I really understand them and have those conversations from the jump. So I think that by the time we get around to like me actually handing them the mix, we're usually at a pretty similar place with it. So there isn't crazy specifics. Um, but in terms of, like, following up, probably not on specifics like a specific DB or something like that with lowering or whatever, raising something, circling back around with the whole team and saying, "Hey, blah, 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 such and such, here's the version," and sometimes there's multiple versions. Here's one where like it's the radio edit, right? And here's the whatever, and this deadline, da 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 da, and this is what they said they needed. Here's one with this feature. Here's the remix, blah 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 blah. Let me know everything good, great. Gonna send it to mastering, kind of thing. Um,
Okay.
if there's just like multiple people, that's
Yeah.
really the only time that I'd circle back.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. You said it's all like you set it up like a layup. So, you make sure you ask the right questions, you have the right conversation, you've dialogued with them. What's sort of like your core things you address before you even start touching any faders in communication with a client? Before, like, just before you start dialing things in, what are you trying to checklist off in your head so that way you're on the right track?
Um, I think it's really it really, really I feel like this is, like, I'm giving, like, bad advice because I'm not giving, like,
Cons-
specifics. If anything, I'm making it more confusing because 'cause I'm giving really general things, but it really is, like, subject to who you're dealing with.
okay,
Um, like, understanding what their priorities are is going and, like, really, really listening instead of just kind of, like, doing the thing where some people do and they're, like, listening just so that they can say what their part is. But
okay,
really going, "Okay, what's your priority? Is your priority" and, one, understanding the artist and the producer and their music and their style and their priority, their preference, right? And, um and they will tell you. They'll tell you what it is, and if you can meet those things first, while at the same time hopefully meeting your priorities so that you're proud of what you put out, or at least not embarrassed of what you put out, at the same time. Ideally, if you can meet both of those goals, I think that that's what leads to like the best relationship and everybody being happy. And it's so different from person to person
okay,
because some producers are like, you can do, I trust you, do whatever you want, change the vocal tune, the vocals, add your effects, do whatever. Don't touch my drums. You know what I mean? Make my
yep,
drum sound exactly the same. Some people over here are like, I don't care if you add all the production or you change it, do whatever you want, but I need it done within XYZ time frame and blah blah
yep,
blah. And then some people want to like micromanage like what they believe the sound should be on the mix. So it's just like understanding whatever that means to them and what it is that they're describing and making sure that that's translating over to you. However they're characterizing it, they're saying, "Hey, I really want XYZ compressor." Okay, I'm not gonna just assume that they're saying they want the compressor for the same reason I'd want that compressor. Why are you saying that to me? Why? Explain to me
okay,
why that one. Okay, and it could be for a reason that I would completely not consider. It could be because they said, "Well, that was the one that was used on XYZ record." It could be a record I've never even heard. And it could be you can go listen to that record and you can go, okay, like I would have not gotten that. That's just happens to be the compressor that they use. But what they're really talking about is like the pumping that's happening right here. So
okay.
now I know that they want that. Do you know what I mean? So it does depend on the person.
Yeah, yeah. The person, the context of the record, and you. It's not just about like hearing the words. It's about reading into the words and leaning into like understanding exactly what they're saying. Because it's easy to write a
Yeah.
list of things people say, but it's another thing to actually have like the inquest or the inquisition to be like, oh, you said X Y Z. This is how I understand it. Is that correct?
Hmm.
Yes, no. Okay, cool. All right. So I want to get onto the tail end of what next year's going to look like because you smash this year out of the park, which is great. And you know what's funny? While you're on the pod, Diego dropped your name to me on a call,
Oh,
uh,
Diego, I love him.
and I'm like, oh shit! I like like you've been in the feed, and I'm like, oh, this is cool, but it never like clicked to me double over. And he dropped your name. I'm like,
Hmm.
shit, yeah. And then Bob's been dropping your name as well in our text, and I'm like, oh, okay. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So it's been. I need to congratulate you on like this year, but I also want to
Thank you
ask.
so much.
You're welcome. And somebody who's done this year and set out like a 12 like a whole year's very very like people when you have like a small project to do, it's one thing.
Hmm.
Oh, in the next few weeks I'm gonna tidy up my room or whatever. Who cares? Like, you did that. But to spend a whole year like committed, or the last 24 months, especially after going to Berkeley, to just driving towards one thing, and now you're sort of getting some velocity behind it. What are your like? Do you have any goals moving forward, that drive past mixing in terms of like where do you see the next 12, 24 months of your career leading towards and going?
Well, I think I haven't had a break in the mixing,
Okay.
um, since about May. I think I probably have, um, over 20 mixes just on my board right now. As soon as I cross one off, I get another one on there. Um, and so and I have some really cool projects, and some cool collaborations coming up, some new relationships, with some producers who I'm super excited to work with. Cricket, who we've collaborated creatively before, mixing for him. He's like Peso Pluma, um, Lefty Gunplay, Santa Fe Clan. So really admire his work in like the Latin American. Great producer, really phenomenal person, and human being. And then Illmind, he's somebody I'm really excited to work with because he is also like a fellow Asian, and that's pretty unique. And it's just unique. There's not many of us in music. So to
Yeah.
find that and like some of the things that we're doing just creatively, uh outside of just the spectrum of the traditional producer mixing relationship, but things that we're doing in terms of like advocacy, in terms of like artists,
Cool.
in terms of um like mentorship and master classes, and like we're talking about doing summits and like partnerships. um uh so there's things like that that are kind of diving outside of the spectrum of just sitting here in my room and mixing records that I'm really excited about. um some of the records that I can't talk about specifics yet with, but, like, that I'm wearing all hats, sort of how you're talking about, like, it's important to have production chops. I think it's really helped me to have relationships and knowledge and other elements of, like, the music business as well, having relationship with artists and other producers that are in other camps. So when we're doing an album and they say, "Hey, we need this huge artist over here in this completely different genre. Do you know anybody?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Let me call them, you know? Let
Yeah.
me call that artist. Let me call it." But having those relationships, maintaining them, sort of A&Ring and putting that together. So I played that role in some of the albums that I'm mixing as well, and has led to me being more heavily involved in like my creative ideas as to how I think that it would be in, like, innovative ways that I think that we can roll out those records,
Okay.
on the releases and the promotion and things that we can do to contribute back to the community, to give back to, like, the next generation of music makers, to help encourage, like, foster growth and mentor them. Um, so I think this next year, I'll still play, I hope to continue in my accelerated pathway of being the best and greatest mixer that I can be, but also really diving heavily um into like more of a mentorship and teaching role, uh not at like a university or anything, but just kind of like master classes. I actually have one coming up in El Salvador in like 3 weeks, a
Yeah, I
master
saw
class
that.
with Sonic Summit. Yeah, so things like that, and partnering in that way. um And I'd also just really like to get just, I'd like to make it more of a standard and like awareness kind of thing for like some of the prejudices and issues that I faced as a female. I would like that to be kind of like a lesson and awareness, and be more something that people are more conscientious of after interfacing with me, so that other females who might be less experienced or have less relationships or be less established are not going to have to deal with some of the things that I've had to.
Mm.
Because I've had to deal with some shocking things considering the reputation and the credits and experience and relationships I do have. So I can only imagine what it would be for somebody that,
Mm.
and well, actually, I do know what it is because I've talked to other young women who are students
Yeah.
or who are beginning, and they, it's very intimidating when you have 0 people backing you and 0 there's, like, that fear and intimidation. I'm hoping that, like, having a more public facing role will help encourage, like, awareness and just, like, a conscientiousness on not on the whole community, but with a specific segment of the community that I think definitely needs it.
Yeah.
Um,
Could I ask a question? Um,
sure.
Out of curiosity, how can people in that part of the community, let's say females jumping in that might not have the backing and the name, what tools, resources, maybe even practices that you've given yourself in terms of could be for your own mental space or well-being or communication, the way you communicate. What sort of practices do you feel like they should know about or you could advise them on to help them take a little bit of control over their like autonomy? I think is better than control. Autonomy over their themselves, like so that way they can regain a little bit more of that power for themselves when they're in these situations, so they don't feel as helpless, especially for those that might not have people directly next to them to talk to.
Um, I think having, like, a good community, a sounding board, whether that
Okay.
just be just friends, family,
Okay.
um, because I mean, I have, you know, a different network of people that are, like, my trusted, like, homies, right? They're the ones I talk to
Yeah.
every day. So, like, Bob, I'm lucky Bob happens to be a very, like, legacy and, like, legendary, like, mixer and engineer. But, who's had a very long tenure, right? But he's also one of my best friends, and I talk to him we talk all day, every day. So, he's been so important to, like, my mental health and me feeling, like, grounded and, like, centered and, like, it's gonna be okay, and not taking it so personally, and also instrumental in understanding, like, the perspective because, while it might be wrong or while it might be incorrect how somebody might treat me or whatever, deal with me, um, simply because I'm a female or, like, their interactions with me, helping understand, like, the male perspective and having empathy for it is has been helpful, right? Because, I mean, it's easier for me to not be so butthurt over it if I can, like, understand it a little bit. And then one of my other best friends, Jen, I mean, she's not, in our industry whatsoever, and that's been super helpful
Oh,
because
okay, cool.
she's a female who is, like, deals with the world every day and takes it from that perspective and, is just a good sounding board and a good support system, so that's given me, like, an insulation and a feeling of, like, not being isolated, or
Okay.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think that that part's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's okay to talk to people. You don't have to feel any shame or stigma around bringing or flagging these things up with your friends and whatnot if you're feeling it. I think that's like
Oh,
really
totally.
important. Yeah, because
Yeah.
some people might not want to burden somebody close to them out of the fear. Oh, they've got their things going on, so I'm just going to try and internalize it and deal with it themselves, and that can hurt your psyche in a bad way. And the reason why I'm flagging this is because for any females or anybody who feels hard done by in the industry, like where they've
Mhm.
been slighted, um, it's your feelings are valid. You're allowed to feel the way you feel, and in the same respect, it's not a burden to spend the time with somebody that's close to you, sort of unpacking it if you need to, like and understanding it. It's a healthy form of recourse for you
Mhm.
to protect your emotions, protect your mental well being. Because if you bottle it up, it's not good. It doesn't excuse any behavior in any sense of the word, but it's more so about people who are watching this. I just want them to be able to protect themselves and be
Mhm.
strong, so that way when they are in the room and they have to deal with something or they have to show up for a mix and they need to deliver something but somebody sent something offhanded, they can still go and kick ass. I think that's really important.
Totally. And your friends are a good perspective. I mean, sometimes my friends are better at setting boundaries than I am. I mean, Bob has been better at it than and he doesn't even have a vagina, and he's way better at it than I am. He'll sit here and go, "You don't need to be friends with that person. Fuck that person." You know what I
Yep.
mean? He'll be like, "Don't talk to that person. The person's gross." And, like, you know what I mean? And, like, don't
Yep.
worry about it, and don't worry about the fact that, like, all of us are, like, supposedly friends with your chart. He's like, "Don't worry about it." He's like, "And don't feel obligated, and just ignore them." And he's been good when I feel like, because there's times even, like, and I would say I'm a pretty opinionated, like, kind of strong-willed individual, but there has been times where, like, sometimes I let things slip, or that I kind of, like, will make excuses, or I'm kinda like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal," and he'll be like, "Uh-uh." Like, he'll be like, "No,
Yeah.
I don't think so." And, he's sat there in the middle of me telling something, and he's just gone, "Stop, block them." Like, "Just stop, block them." you know?
Yep.
And sometimes you need friends that are, like, kind of like the person that checks you, and, like, make sure that you keep your perspective in line too. And you can be the strongest person on the planet, girl or guy, and sometimes you still and Bob is, generally speaking, I would say, like, a sweeter, nicer, uh, personality than me. I mean, that's why I, like, love him so much. He's like a very much a balance to me, but sometimes he's the person that's like, "Nuh-uh," you know? So,
Yeah.
we all need it. We all need that person.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. That's awesome. Much love to you, Bob. Um, yeah, I'm very
Yeah, we all
grateful
love Bob,
to
and Bob
Bob.
loves you. Yeah, oh, he loves you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, no. No, I do appreciate his kindness and his friendship, and yeah, he's insanely, incredibly. It's not only respect. He's not only respected, and this is just something. As a side note, he's not only respected. He's incredibly respectful. He
Mhm.
gives everybody the time and attention of day. He doesn't dismiss anybody. He
Totally.
listens. And that's what from day dot, from meeting him the first time to now, the way he shows up for everybody and anybody in terms of that
Yeah.
sense of respect does not waver. Like, as in, it's a consistent thing, which is really healthy. Like, really a credit to him.
A
But
huge cry. I think we can all there's a lot of people, everybody could take a note from that, because, I mean, if you can have had the career and the relevancy and the clientele and the success that he's had, and remain with, like, that kind of attitude, and, like, that humbleness and that accepting, like, he's so accepting and so generous, and it's just it's such a rare, like, honestly, unfortunately, a rare quality, in, like, the engineering community. um
yeah,
at, like, a certain tier, you've just got, I mean, I've never I deal with some of the most, for all the things on all the talent, also a lot of ego in terms of the reputations with some of the producers that I've, like, worked with and maintained really, really positive relationships. So I think it means something when I say I've actually never dealt with as much ego at all in music until I became an engineer and dealt with other engineers, because they beat producers in spades when it comes to ego. And Bob is just, I mean, a legend, and he is just so kind and, like, so generous, and he will never make you feel less than. So I'm very privileged to have him as, like, one of my best friends. I'm very grateful to, like, have him in my life. And speaking about when you said what's coming up for this next year, I'm not sure when this episode is coming out, but this announcement is coming soon anyways. Bob and I have a new show, uh, that is coming out. So
oh,
we've already started filming the episodes for it. Um,
is that with
yeah.
Beezy?
I'm sorry?
Is that with Fat Beezy that you've been filming?
Oh, yeah, he's doing, like, the editorial, and
Uh,
he's amazing, obviously behind the camera, in front of the camera, he has his own he's a unique perspective because he's also an engineer in his own right, you
yeah,
know? And he's
he
just
was.
such a good person. He's so fun to be around, he's cracks me up.
He's fun, and he also, like, I remember when I was on Faders, at Nam, and he's behind the camera, and he's so good to make every single person feel comfortable in the environment. Like, he really controls it in such a healthy way. Um,
Mhm.
which I think is great, because it's better than somebody who's just boring and bland behind the camera, or you know what I mean. Like, he's really, which is really good. Um, let me know, because we're on the pod at the moment, and you don't have to say anything. What is the show like about? Like, what are you diving into in the show, or do you want to leave that off air?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
Where it's because it's I feel like there's, like, a lot of people in the community that already kind of know about it, just because we've already started to film.
yep,
It's kind of like I mean, Bob and I, for one, we have, like, our own, like, relationship, besides, like, being co-mixers, we're also like best friends, and so we have like our own rapport, and our we're very, very, very similar in terms of like our approach, our methodologies, the values that we have in terms of our approach, and all these other things, and so we kind of combine those things and the things that are contrasting and different about us, and we were like, hey, let's kind of take like the concept and the principle of like Pensado's place, but let's celebrate our peers and the people around us. And we were very cautionary about not wanting to be a YouTube engineer channel because
yep,
there's a lot of YouTube engineers and there's purchased opinions and not quite honest opinions and things like that. And also at the end of the day, if your biggest accomplishment is engineering for YouTube, I'm not knocking that, but that is a completely different thing because the people that are watching you are probably not trying to learn how to be a YouTube sensation. They're probably trying to learn how to do this for real. So,
yep,
like, let's take our real life experience, be real working engineers. It's not all hunky dory. We don't have like these ideal stems that we get to run through this piece of gear that we were set and paid to like advertise. And like, let's actually talk about real issues, real problems, real politics, blah, blah, blah. And a big part of what we're doing is we are celebrating not only the different roles, so producers, writers, artists, engineers, like from mixing, mastering, recording, but also going to their studios and um, kind of seeing where they work and sort of like the where they find their creative home and how they put their secret sauce on the records and the ways that they do. Um, and kind of just diving into it with them and making each episode be a unique and sort of special like deep dive and intimate look into that individual, whoever the individual is for like the episode. We just shot one with um Baines uh just a few days ago actually. Um and and we shot the first part of one with Rick Carson, and we're planning on going to Nebraska and checking out his studio. He's like
oh, cool,
renowned for having, and him and I talk about like the his bathroom that's currently turned into an SSL room. So, it's those are very special things and very unique things to him, right? And Baines has his own things and his own challenges and his own things that he's facing and his own ways of combating and dealing with the schedules and the politics and all these other things and the moving around. And I think those are really cool things to learn and to learn about the individual journey and thought process of the people that are doing the work. Um, that the people that are watching the channel want to do, and also seeing that there is no right way or wrong way.
yeah,
It is very different. We're all so different. There is no, this is wrong and you're wrong and this is dumb and this is snake oil and blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. If it works and you have a career doing it, you're doing something right. So it's all worth taking in and then pick and choose what you want to implement yourself.
yeah. And I think that's one of the stark contrasts. Ironically, this is going to YouTube, but that's one of the stark contrasts people don't experience through YouTube, is what happens in a YouTube comment section or in a well planned out and produced YouTube edit, like productorial, I'll call it, productorial video, is that when you jump into a studio to hang, you work on a session, you go to a party with a bunch of other engineers, the conversations which happen are completely free flowing. They're not like, um, they're not like, how do I put it? They're not a comment section on YouTube. People are throwing out ideas. People are throwing down things on like if it's a pass the aux or they got a session up, they're throwing down things and trying different plugins and they're all trying to experiment. But nobody's going to be like completely shutting down somebody over something they're hearing, because it's like, well, wait a second, this is their experience and their interaction with the record and how they're perceiving it and putting it together. And that's the
Mhm.
flavor other people pay them for. It might not be what people pay you for, but it's like there's that sort of respect level that everybody's open to everybody else in a sense, whereas on YouTube it's the opposite.
Totally.
Everybody's sort of trying to campaign and fight for their own value set to validate
Yeah.
themselves. It's like, hey, this is
Yeah.
what I believe. You don't believe it, so you're telling me I'm wrong, and I need you to believe it because that's how I know I'm right. Very different in the real world when you're in studios with people. So
Completely different. Yeah,
yeah, completely
completely
different.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool. I'm really excited to see it. I'm so glad you and Bob are doing that. That makes me genuinely excited. And you know what's funny? I recently like trashed my whole newsfeed on YouTube so I don't get any suggested. So you can delete all your history, because I'm just like, I can't binge YouTube. I've got so much shit on. And now I've got an excuse to like throw some things into the watch later playlist once you guys start rolling these videos out in this show. So thanks for plugging that. I think you've got the summit in El Salvador as well. Is that filled up yet or no? Is that still selling?
No, no, it's still selling. I don't know how many spots are left, because it was only but I imagine there are some because it was only just announced, like 2 days ago. So, I know that Shane, he's the person that runs it, he wanted to finish up and was kinda caught up with finishing the Manny Marroquin one that was happening in
Yep.
Guatemala. Yeah, so then we waited till the last day of that to announce mine. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I think it's still available if you wanna
Okay.
come.
Yeah, definitely. This I won't be able to get out to El Salvador. I just booked tickets to LA for next year, so that's
Oh, for
my next
NAMM.
trip on the
Oh,
list.
good.
Yeah, definitely,
Yay.
definitely. But this podcast will go out next week, so if there's still tickets available, just DM me the link so that way I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Because I think for anybody who doesn't know, not only will Jade be hosting this summit, I know Bob's guesting as well.
Yeah,
For it.
and there will be some pretty big producer name guests as well,
That's
so
incredible.
Ghostkid included. Mhm.
That's really cool. So yeah, just for people who want to learn, it's in person is way better. Like I do masterclasses online and they're great, and I love that I'm able to connect with hundreds of people and teach people. But when you're in a room with somebody, there's something special and magical that just can be sort of like translated, communicated in a really healthy way. So yeah, check that out. I'm going to thank you for coming on the pod because we have jammed, and I am so glad I got to do this episode with you, and I've learned so much. Like I do this with all my guests, but like I've got a whole page of my notes all like sort of laid out. Because I learn from these. It's not just like one way where I'm like listening and like, yeah, okay, let's move on. No, I'm like actively like, where's the juice? Like, what am I gonna learn? So, thank you so much for coming on, Jade. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll be seeing your show soon too.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's good catching up with you because it has been, like, almost a year now since I saw you, and so, are you gonna be here for all the whole week or
Yeah,
for NAMM?
I'm gonna be there from the 19th to the 25th or 26th. I leave, so I'm gonna just come in a day
Oh,
early, stay in LA,
oh.
spend the week in Anaheim, then go back to LA for a day or two, and then jump out.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
I know that, like, we're not able to really go to your studio, because it's in Australia, but we have seen photos of, like, your build out and stuff like that. Looks really amazing. Looks, like that new room that you built earlier this year. So maybe we can maybe we can have you like as like a guest spot in episode. And also, we should just like hang out, like
Yeah,
Bob. Well, yeah, just like the three of us and like grab lunch or something. It'd be great to catch up.
yeah, definitely. That's something we'll definitely make happen. Or and we'll do that, and you and Bob can get some tickets and fly halfway across the world. Once the show blows up and there's budget and there's sponsors, the sky's the limit. You're always welcome here. I do appreciate the invite, and I will be taking you and Bob up on that.
Yeah,
Because
we'd love
that'll
to
be
see you. We love you, and I'd love to have you. Like master a record that like both of us are doing. Bob's like Nick. Nick is the guy. He's like Nick is the guy. He's who I recommend for like when I get to control the mastering. That's who I recommend. So
yeah,
he's very very fond of your work, and he's picky. So I'd love
yeah.
to yeah collaborate with you too.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love to. I love working on Bob's mixes, but he's picky and kind. Um, so I know when I'm in my session, they typically Bob's ones. The mixes come in so damn good. I end up sweating for an hour and a half working on it, more than I do any other projects because I'm like listening to every detail. I'm like the mixes come in and I'm like, these sound great, but Bob wants them to absolutely slap the shit out of people's faces when he hears them. So I'm like, being like something I do is I just take a half a second to a second loop of a kick or a snare, level
Mhm.
match it within a tenth of a LUFS. So it's like the before and after are leveled within a tenth of a decibel. And then I'm looping it. I'm just being his and mine. And I'm like, okay, oh no, I'm losing some of the
Oh.
sub, I'm getting a bit of the transient, or it's doing something I like or doing something I don't like. I go that granular on his because um, I do that on all my masters, but I really just know that his mixes come in and like you said, when people have been in the room and they've approved it and they've had those conversations and they're happy with it, you don't want to go back on it. You don't want to like destroy what they've done. So yeah, it's a
Well,
fun
and I think like
process.
that, I mean, I just learned something from this conversation too. Like, and especially about your approach as a mastering engineer. Those are like, that's exactly what we look for. Is someone that like
Yeah,
really resource. It makes sense to me when Bob goes, because we had this conversation. We started co-mixing and we're like, okay, who's the mastering engineer? Do you know what I mean? We had like that conversation, right? As like
yeah.
mixers. We're like, who do we use? And his statement about you was, "Well, whenever Nick sends me back a master, I'm always happy with it. Like,
Mm.
it always sounds good. It's
Yeah,
always, like, approved." He's like, "I'm always happy with it." I was like, "Okay, okay." And I was like, "That's enough of a" I said, "Okay, we can use him, we can try him." I was like, and as a
yeah,
mixer, once you get used to certain mastering engineers, it is hard to like
yeah.
choose to switch, but that
Oh,
is
yeah,
like super high praise coming from him.
yeah,
Yeah,
and yeah,
super
I
high
really
praise
do
coming from him.
appreciate it, and it's incredible because we're blessed in the industry with so many amazing mastering engineers, like and
Totally.
mixing engineers, but like I love learning from every engineer I get the opportunity to and seeing their passion. There's an episode when I was doing my vlogs in LA, which is worth
Mhm.
checking out. Do you know the bakery mastering, Eric? It's on the Sony Pictures lot.
Mm, no, I don't think so.
I fell in
I'll have
love
to
with
check
this
it out.
man. He's so
Really?
passionate. He's got his mastering studios on the Sony's Pictures lot. It's in an old screening room. It's called the Bakery
Mm,
Mastering. He's so passionate about his space. And when he talks about the space and his vinyl lathe and everything, he just oozes this enthusiasm, which is infectious.
mhm.
Um, and it's little moments like that when I meet a mastering engineer or speak with mastering engineers. They all have their own sort of thing, quote unquote, which just makes me love the craft even more. That was a particularly notable one for location, for the person, the personality. So yeah. Anyway,
I'll have to check out that episode. I saw the one you did with Connor though. My
yeah, of
mastering
course.
engineer. Shout out Connor. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
did see
Oh
that
man,
one. Yeah.
he's he's so beautiful. He was in my DMs when he was sort of starting to get set up. And then the fact I got to meet him and jump into his space and connect with him, I was over the moon. He's absolute beautiful, like ridiculously beautiful human being. Anyway, I'm gonna love you and leave you with that, so that way people can go back and get all the gems and replay this episode, because they should. There's a lot to absorb in this, and for yourself, I know if you have to get to Bob's, you're gonna get on the road pretty soon, because I think you're mixing with Bob soon.
Oh, yeah, you know what we're actually doing? We're going to go get a desk. We're going to,
Oh,
like,
okay.
Lars LA Recording School. Yes, because when we're talking about organizing, I'm switching out desks. I'm switching to a mastering desk, so fun times. We're
That's
super
good.
excited to wire everything.
Yeah,
Favorite
that's what he
part of
used.
mixing.
That's what he used to have originally. I think at Echo Bar before he got the
Yes.
larger. Yeah,
Yeah, he built it. Actually, him and Eric built that. Mhm.
the new
Oh,
one
yeah,
behind him they built, or the original one they built.
both.
Oh, cool! I didn't know the
Yeah,
original one he had built. Oh, that's really
yeah.
sick.
So the one that I'm getting is it's not built, obviously, by him and Eric.
Yeah,
It's from the LA Recording School.
yeah,
Robert, he is the director. He is really generous and offered it to me. But but it's the same model as the one that
yeah,
him and Eric built that he had. Yeah,
yeah.
and his old assistant has that now. That exact desk that they built. Yeah.
Shakar,
No.
Shak.
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah,
think Shaq does have
ish.
it. I think it's Shaq. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Well, look, best of luck getting the desk set up and getting a space organized. I had a desk like that before, and it is so awesome. Like it's really nice to work on.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm
you'll enjoy it.
excited.
Good, good.
Thanks
Well,
so
look,
much for having me.
no worries, my pleasure. All right, thank you so much, and take care. Have a beautiful day.
Yeah, I'll see you in January.
No worries. See you then. Bye.
Bye.